Wait, pause that. Seok-jin's sharp voice echoed through the glass walls of his penthouse. The maid holding the remote froze. On the massive TV screen, the bright lights of a live dating show reflected off a nervous young woman's brown skin. She looked radiant, yet out of place among the perfectly styled Korean contestants. The host's voice boomed, "Welcome to Love and Soul. Please introduce yourself." The woman bowed slightly. "I'm Kendra Hayes. From the USI, I work here in Seoul." The audience whispered. Someone laughed. A man in the front row snorted, "She's black? On a Korean dating show?" Seok-jin's chest tightened. "No, it can't be," he muttered, stepping closer to the screen. Kendra tried to keep smiling, but the camera caught the tremor in her hands. The male host tilted his head mockingly. "So, what do you do?" "I work as a maid," she admitted quietly. Laughter burst through the studio. Even the other contestants struggled to hide their smirks. The billionaire's jaw clenched. His maid, the same woman who'd served him tea that morning, now sat humiliated on national television. The male contestant across from her chuckled. "Sorry, I don't date maids." Kendra's smile shattered. Seok-jin's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Turn it off," he ordered, but his eyes stayed locked on her face. Kendra hurried off the stage, her heels clicking against the studio floor. The fake smiles of the other contestants vanished the second the camera stopped rolling. "Did you really think you'd get picked?" One of the girls sneered in Korean. "You were just for laughs." Kendra's throat burned. She tried to walk past them, clutching her small purse, but another voice cut through the hallway. The male contestant from earlier. "You embarrassed yourself, sweetheart," he said, smirking. "A maid looking for love on Love and Soul?" "That's comedy," the crew nearby laughed. Her eyes filled, but she refused to cry in front of them. "I don't need your pity," she said quietly. As she turned to leave, someone accidentally bumped into her, spilling iced coffee down her red dress. The laughter grew louder. Kendra froze, her fists trembling, humiliation crawling through her skin. A deep voice interrupted. "That's enough." Everyone turned. Seok-jin Lee stood by the hallway entrance, tall and cold-eyed, dressed in a dark suit. The same billionaire whose mansion she cleaned. The crew fell silent, recognizing him instantly. Kendra blinked, speechless. "Mr. Lee?" He walked forward slowly, his gaze burning through the crowd. "Is this how you treat people who come here with courage?" No one dared answer. The man who'd mocked her looked away, stammering. Seok-jin stopped in front of Kendra. "Come with me," he said softly. She hesitated. "Did you see everything?" His jaw tightened. "Yes, I saw everything," he said. The black car door shut with a soft thud, sealing Kendra in silence. Seoul's neon lights flashed past the window as the car glided through the city. Kendra sat stiffly beside Seok-jin, her wet dress sticking to her skin. The smell of coffee clung to her, sharp and humiliating. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For what?" His voice was calm, too calm. "For being there. For embarrassing you." He turned his head slowly, his dark eyes unreadable. "You think that's what this is about?" Her throat tightened. "Everyone was laughing, sir. I just wanted to do something different, something that wasn't cleaning floors." He exhaled, looking out the window. "And you thought a dating show was the way?" Her lip trembled. "It was the only one that accepted me." "No one here hires black women easily, Mr. Lee. Not in offices and not even on screens." Silence filled the car. Even the driver glanced nervously through the mirror. Seok-jin finally spoke, softer this time. "They laughed because they couldn't understand you. Not because you were wrong," she blinked, confused. "Then why did you look so angry, sir?" He looked at her fully now. "Because they reminded me how cruel people can be when they think money makes them better." Kendra swallowed hard, unsure if he was angry at her or at himself. As the car stopped in front of the mansion, he said quietly, "Take the night off, Kendra. You've been seen enough for one day." She stepped out, her heart heavy. But Seok-jin didn't move. He just watched her walk away. The next morning, Kendra tied her apron quietly, trying to ignore the sharp whispers floating across the marble hallway. "She really went on a dating show," one maid murmured. "With that red dress," another giggled. "She actually thought a rich Korean guy would choose her." Kendra's fingers trembled around the tray she was holding. She forced a smile and walked past them, pretending not to hear. As she entered the dining room, Seok-jin was already seated, scrolling through his tablet. The quiet hum of classical music filled the air. "Good morning, sir," she said softly. He looked up briefly. "Good morning?" His eyes flicked to the stain that still faintly marked her uniform from last night's coffee. He said nothing, but his jaw tightened. One of the junior staff entered behind her and whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. "The famous TV maid has arrived." The tableware rattled as Seok-jin dropped his spoon. "Out!" he said without looking up. The maid froze. "Sir?" "Out!" he repeated, his tone sharper. The room fell silent. When the door shut, Kendra lowered her gaze. "You didn't have to do that, sir." "Yes, I did," he said firmly. "You've already been laughed at enough." "Not in my house, too." She looked up, startled by his tone. For a moment, their eyes met, hers filled with gratitude, his with something she couldn't quite name. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. He simply nodded. "Finish your work, then come to my study. We need to talk." Her heart skipped. "Talk? Uh, about what, sir?" "You'll see." Kendra stood outside Seok-jin's study, her palms damp. She knocked softly. "Come in," his voice said from inside. He was seated behind his sleek black desk, a steaming cup of tea untouched beside him. The morning sun cast a golden glow on the shelves behind him, but his expression was unreadable. "Sit," he said simply. She obeyed, clutching her hands on her lap. "I watched that entire show last night," he began. "Every second of it. You didn't break character once Kendra blinked." "Sir?" He leaned back, studying her. "You kept your composure. Even when they humiliated you," she swallowed. "I tried to. It just hurt that much." "That's exactly why I called you here," he said, leaning forward now. "I'm launching a new media foundation, something that supports underrepresented talents. People who deserve to be seen for who they are, not where they come from." Her brows furrowed. "And what does that have to do with me, sir?" "I want you to be part of it," he said plainly. "You'll manage the project. Training, recruiting, and overseeing auditions. A full position. Not as a maid." Kendra's lips parted in disbelief. "You're offering me a real job?" He gave a slight nod. "You've been cleaning my floors for 2 years. It's time people see what else you can do." Her voice trembled. "Why me, sir?" Seok-jin held her gaze. "Because you reminded me what courage looks like when the world is laughing." Her eyes glistened. "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me yet," he said. "It won't be easy." By afternoon, the mansion buzzed with gossip. "Did you hear? The maid's now the boss's favorite," one staff member whispered near the kitchen. "They said he gave her an office," another replied, her voice dripping with envy. "Imagine, a maid becoming manager overnight." Kendra tried to ignore them as she sorted through files in the small workspace Seok-jin had arranged for her. She could still feel their stares, their whispers slicing through every step she took. When she entered the staff dining area later, the room went silent. Forks paused midair. Someone muttered, "Guess she's too good to sit with us now." Kendra forced a small smile. "I'm still me, guys." A woman named Sue Min scoffed. "Right. Until Mr. Lee starts eating with you too." The laughter that followed was sharp and cruel. Kendra turned to leave, holding her breath, only to bump straight into Seok-jin at the doorway. The laughter stopped instantly. He looked around the room slowly. "If any of you have time for gossip, I'll assume your duties are finished." "No, sir," they all murmured, heads down. He turned to Kendra. "Walk with me." As they moved through the hallway, she said quietly, "You didn't have to defend me again, sir." He gave a faint smile. "I didn't. I defended the woman who now represents my foundation. Don't ever shrink to make others comfortable, Kendra." Her chest tightened. "You make it sound easy, sir," she said softly. "It's not," he said, "but you'll learn." The ballroom shimmered with gold chandeliers and clicking cameras. It was Seok-jin's first public event for the foundation, and Kendra's first time standing beside him as an equal. Reporters filled the space, flashes bursting as the billionaire greeted politicians and celebrities. Kendra stood behind him nervously, dressed in a modest black gown he'd personally approved. Her palms were slick with sweat. When he finally turned to her, his voice softened. "Stay close. Don't let them intimidate you." She nodded, heart pounding. A host's voice rang out. "Please welcome Mr. Seok-jin Lee and his foundation's new project manager, Miss Kendra Hayes." The applause was polite, until murmurs rippled through the room. Some guests whispered, others exchanged surprised looks. One reporter's question sliced through the air. Mr. Lee, is this a diversity stunt? The crowd tensed. Kendra froze, her eyes darting to Seok-jin. He raised a brow. Excuse me? Well, the reporter continued, a maid turned manager overnight? It's unusual. A few guests laughed quietly. Kendra's chest tightened. Every camera was on her now. She could feel the same mocking eyes from the dating show all over again. But before she could speak, Seok-jin stepped forward. Unusual, yes, he said firmly. But so is courage. Miss Hayes didn't inherit privilege. She earned her place. And if that makes anyone uncomfortable, they're welcome to leave. The room went silent. Then one by one, people began to clap. Kendra blinked through tears. For the first time, she wasn't invisible. The entire hall fell into stunned silence. The cameras stopped rolling. The host froze, his smile awkwardly hanging midair. The man who'd poured wine on Kendra's hair backed away nervously, realizing who had just shouted. Mr. Seok-jin Lee? One of the producers stammered. You were watching? Seok-jin ignored him completely. He took off his suit jacket and draped it over Kendra's trembling shoulders. We're leaving, he said quietly, his tone like steel. Kendra's lip quivered. But the event? I said we're leaving. The crowd parted instantly as he let her out. His hand firm on her arm, his jaw clenched. Phones were out. Paparazzi flashed lights in their faces. The once cheerful music now sounded like distant noise. Outside, under the bright hotel lights, Kendra could barely breathe. Her dress was stained, her curls wet with red wine, her mascara smudged. Why are we leaving? She asked, voice breaking. He turned to her slowly. Because I couldn't sit there and watch them humiliate you? Tears filled her eyes. I told you this show was a bad idea. I know, he said softly, but what they did was unforgivable. He handed her his handkerchief. Cameras still flashed in the distance. Reporters, whispering, recording, taking notes. One of them shouted, Mr. Lee, is she your girlfriend? Seok-jin glanced toward them, then at Kendra's frightened eyes. Something in him hardened. He pulled her closer, placed a hand around her waist, and said clearly, Yes, she is. The reporters gasped. Flashes exploded. Kendra's eyes widened, completely stunned. Sir! He leaned close enough for only her to hear. If protecting you means telling the world, then so be it. He opened the car door, guided her in, and slammed it shut. As the driver pulled away, Kendra sat frozen, heart pounding, tears still on her cheeks, wondering what she had just gotten herself into. Kendra woke up to the sound of her phone vibrating nonstop. Her eyes were barely open when she saw the flood of notifications, hundreds of them. Kendra Hayes exposed, Korean billionaire's secret girlfriend. Dating show turns into real-life drama. Seok-jin Lee defends black maid on live TV. Her stomach dropped. Oh no, she whispered. Before she could even react, the phone rang. It was her best friend Tasha. Tasha, screaming, Girl, you're all over the internet. Kendra, wait, what? How? Tasha, don't how me. There's a clip of you and Seok-jin trending. He called you his girlfriend on live TV. Kendra, you're viral. Kendra groaned, burying her face in a pillow. I didn't even say anything. He just said it. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a message from Seok-jin himself. Seok-jin, stay indoors today. The media will come looking. Kendra stared at the text, her heart racing. What have you done, Seok-jin? Moments later, the TV in her tiny apartment flashed the same headline. A reporter's voice filled the room. Last night, at a high-profile dating show, billionaire Seok-jin Lee publicly claimed the contestant Kendra Hayes, a former maid at his residence, as his girlfriend. Her jaw dropped. Former maid? Oh my God, they know everything. Her doorbell suddenly rang. Ding dong. She froze. Then again, ding dong. Peeking through the peephole, she gasped. Paparazzi, dozens of them. Cameras, microphones, and lights. Miss Hayes! Are you really dating Mr. Lee? How long have you two been together? Did he fire you because you were in love? Kendra's pulse spiked. She grabbed her phone again, dialing Seok-jin. He picked up on the first ring. I told you to stay inside, he said calmly. They're outside my door. I know. What do you mean you know, sir? Because I sent securities, don't open the door. She blinked. You? What? And then she saw them. Two tall Korean men in suits moving through the crowd, clearing a path to her apartment door. Her mouth fell open. "They'll bring you to me," Seok-jin's voice continued. "We need to talk." Before she could even respond, the line went dead. Kendra stood frozen in her living room, hair messy, heart pounding, realizing her quiet life had just exploded into something she could never undo. Kendra sat silently in the back of the black SUV, flanked by two of Seok-jin's security guards. Her reflection on the tinted window looked nothing like the woman she knew. Tired eyes, trembling lips, and wearing the same clothes from the night. The car slowed to a stop in front of an enormous glass building, the Lee Tower, the same building where she once polished floors and dusted tables. Her throat tightened as one of the guards opened her door. "Miss Hayes, this way, please." She stepped out, adjusting her jacket nervously, as camera flashes went off in the distance. The paparazzi had followed, but the guards formed a wall around her, escorting her through the private elevator that led straight to the penthouse. The elevator doors opened and there he was, Seok-jin Lee. No cameras, no reporters, just him, standing by the window, his back turned, watching the Seoul skyline. Kendra took a shaky breath. "Why did you do that, sir?" she asked quietly. He didn't turn. "Because they humiliated you." "So your solution was to humiliate me on national TV?" she snapped, voice cracking. "You called me your girlfriend in front of millions of people, sir. Do you realize what that means?" Finally, he turned to face her. His expression was calm, but his eyes carried that familiar ache she'd seen that night, guilt mixed with something deeper. "It means I wanted them to stop treating you like dirt," he said simply. "By destroying my life?" He stepped closer. "You were trending anyway. The moment you walked on that stage, they were going to rip you apart. I had to protect you." She shook her head, eyes glassy. "You don't protect someone by taking away their choice." Silence. The hum of the city below filled the air. Then Seok-jin sighed, his voice softer. "I didn't mean for it to get this big, but now that it has, we have to face it." "We?" she repeated bitterly. "There's no we, sir. I was your maid. You were my boss." That's all. He flinched at her words. For a moment, he looked like a man stripped of his usual composure. "That's not all you were," he said. "You were the only person who ever spoke to me like I was human." Her breath caught, but she forced her tone steady. "You don't get to say that now." She turned toward the elevator. But before she could reach it, he said quietly, "Your contract at the mansion, it's been terminated. You don't have to come back." She froze, her hand still hovering over the button. "So that's it?" she whispered. "You ruined my peace, then cut me off?" "No," he replied. "I'm offering you something else." She turned, confused. "What could you possibly offer me now, sir?" He looked straight at her. A chance to rewrite the story. Together, the air between them thickened. Shock, anger, and something she couldn't name. Kendra stared at him, her heart pounding. Was this guilt talking, or love? 2 days later, Kendra stood behind the velvet curtain of a luxury hotel ballroom, the same kind of place she once cleaned silently in the background. But today, her face was plastered across every major Korean news outlet. The billionaire and his maid. Microphones clicked, cameras flashed, and the crowd buzzed. Seok-jin stood beside her, immaculate as always, but she noticed the faint dark circles beneath his eyes. "You ready?" he murmured. She didn't answer. Her pulse thumped painfully in her ears. The event manager signaled. The curtain lifted. They stepped into a sea of flashing lights. "Mr. Lee, is it true you're dating your maid?" "Miss Hayes, how long have you two been involved?" "Are you using her for publicity, sir?" Kendra's throat tightened. She wanted to run, to disappear. But Seok-jin's hand brushed against hers subtly, grounding her. Then, to everyone's shock, he leaned toward the microphone. "Yes," he said firmly. "I'm dating her." A collective gasp filled the room. Kendra's eyes widened. She whispered harshly, "Sir, what are you doing?" He didn't flinch. "Telling the truth." "You deserve respect, Kendra. If saying this publicly protects you, I'll say it 100 times. The reporters erupted in questions. Kendra's vision blurred with emotion. "You don't have to do this," she said under her breath. "I know," he replied softly, "but I want to." Then before anyone could react, he turned to her and said in Korean, "Forgive me for everything." Kendra blinked, realizing he'd used the formal tone. the one reserved for sincerity. A hush fell over the room. For a moment, there were no cameras, no judgment. Just two people facing each other honestly. She exhaled shakily. "You really are impossible," she muttered, half smiling through tears. The audience didn't understand their quiet exchange, but their chemistry was undeniable. When they finally walked off the stage, reporters still shouting behind them, Seok-jin looked at her and said, "After this, you can walk away. No one will bother you again. But if you stay, you'll turn my life upside down again," she interrupted gently. He smirked faintly. "Probably." Kendra laughed quietly for the first time in days. She didn't answer him, but the look in her eyes said enough. The story wasn't over yet. The next morning, sunlight poured through Seok-jin's glass office as Kendra stood quietly by the window, holding her resignation letter. She'd written it all night. Her name was everywhere now. News headlines, social media trends, gossip shows. He entered, jacket draped over his arm, eyes tired but soft. "You're really leaving?" She turned slowly, forcing a small smile. "You said I could walk away once it was all over." "It's over." He stepped closer, tension thick between them. "Kendra, everything I own, every person I've met, none of them ever looked at me the way you did. You weren't scared of my money or my reputation, just disappointed when I was wrong." Her throat tightened. "And you weren't scared of me being a maid." Silence hung, then a soft laugh escaped her lips. "Maybe that's why we broke every rule." He smiled faintly. "Then let's break one more." Kendra's eyes glistened. She looked down at her worn hands, the same hands that once scrubbed floors in his mansion, now trembling because they were being asked to stay by the man who once didn't even see her. "What would people say," she whispered. "That a Korean billionaire finally learned what real love looks like," he replied. Tears rolled down her cheek. She dropped the envelope. "Then I guess I'm staying." He stepped forward and pulled her into a quiet, steady embrace. No cameras, no audience, just them. Outside, the world buzzed with rumors. Inside, it was peaceful. For the first time, Kendra didn't feel like the maid. She felt seen. The moral lesson of this story is that true worth isn't defined by status or background, but by character, courage, and heart. Kendra's story reminds us that no matter how the world judges you, the right person will see your value, not your position.